All right. Welcome to Rise and Shine. I am your hostess, Alissa the consultress, bringing you innovative conversations from the front lines of disruption. Because let's just face it, there is nothing normal about today's day and age that we live in, and everything is new. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to my friend, Jaime Lewis. Welcome to Rise and Shine, Jaime.
Good morning. Hello, Alissa. It's great to be here.
Absolutely wonderful. So we'll get to the professional stuff in a little bit. Pre-production, we were talking about things that make us giggle. And we both have sons. So my son brings such joy and like spontaneity into my life. It's one of the things I'm most grateful to him for, because he can just be silly. And I find that, doing that day-to-day thing, I can get like kind of downtrodden, but like he has this knack. Can you please tell me about the thing that is the ridiculousness that your son giggles about?
Any word that has the word but in it. So whenever I say butler, he cracks up. And since he's like about 4, I've had to send him away from the table. And sometimes now I do it just on purpose, right? Just to get him to laugh, because now he's just about 20. And so now it's just the family joke. I say butler, everybody knows why we're saying it. He busts out laughing and has to leave the room.
That's so good. I find that it's those uncommon moments. I was actually out walking with a girlfriend. We like to do coffee and walking instead of like sitting down at a shop and like pinkying the coffee cup.
Fresh air.
And what's that?
Exercise, fresh air.
Yeah, except that this isn't a mall. When it's really too hot or too cold, we go walking in the mall. But there's people who walk the mall and they take the perimeter and everybody's on the right-hand side. Nobody here drives like they drive in England, right? So everybody's walking the right-hand perimeter and going through all the corridors on the right-hand side. And there's this track-like flow. Well, she and I were like, let's do something fun. And we started like weaving in and out of the stuff in the center of the corridor, and people were just giggling as they walked by. And I was like, this is prosperity. This is what it means to help people come alive and really enjoy the stuff of life. And I love to do that in my own life. I think that, ambition plus fun equals prosperity. How do you see fun kind of being incorporated or bringing the vibrance into people's lives from your seat in this world?
So it's a really interesting question, because from a professional standpoint, the work that I do, and I know we'll get into that later, but I do estate planning. So I work in this world that has to do a lot with fear and heavy and more fear. Right. So it's really important to me in my work to laugh as often as I can. And what I tell people a lot is that I take my work incredibly seriously. I don't take myself seriously at all. And that makes it all workable. Because I'll laugh at myself happily, as long as it helps other people laugh too.
And that's a great distinction, right? We can be serious or dedicated or devoted to our work, but that doesn't mean someone once upon a time gave me this term seriosity. Like, you got to be curious, but if you do it with a seriousness, sometimes you lose the creativity that's in it.
Joy.
Yeah.
There's like this spark of joy when something new is in front of you. And I feel like there's nothing like life to like crush that spark right out of you if you let it. Right. So it's about, for me, it's about really taking care of that little spark of joy and trying to see it grow wherever you can. And that's part of not taking myself so seriously.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to snuff out that little spark.
Yeah, because those little sparks, they're actually everywhere if you look for them. It's like when you have a desire to buy a new car, and then all of a sudden you see it everywhere on the road once you've identified what you want.
So I have to tell you, that's exactly what's happening to me right now. I just decided the car that I'm going to get, because I have to trade in my car. I just decided now I can't see. That's the only car I see. It's hysterical that you use that specific example.
Yeah, I mean, and isn't it the way what we focus on expands? Where our attention goes, our universe expands and grows. So the fact that you are kind of entrenched in your professional life in this very serious endeavor that is very triggery for a lot of people. People do not like to talk about what they have to do to plan their own expiration, right? So I love that you don't take yourself seriously because the person you're doing business with helps to bring that material that may be not so easy or not so accessible to most. I've been there. I think that is like it's almost like an open door inviting people in to say, hey, everybody has to address this, but it doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be super heavy. We can make light while we're going through it.
I actually, I mean, maybe I shouldn't say it this way, but I kind of want to disagree with you just a tiny bit.
Please
Because I
do.
don't try to tell people that it doesn't have to be scary and it doesn't have to be heavy, because it kind of does.
Mm,
But
say more.
we can also support each other while we go through that and just acknowledge that it can be heavy and it can be hard, but it doesn't have to be awful. It doesn't have to be a bad experience, because lots of things are hard and lots of things are heavy, but they
Mm,
don't have to be an unpleasant experience to go through. And if we can bring our joy and just our laughter and the reason for why we care about the people we care about to the table, it sort of makes all that hard stuff, the deeper stuff, easier to tolerate, right?
mm,
Because I can't tell you how many people I've sat with who cry to me about how hard things are and how scary this decision is, or how they wish their relationship with their child or parent was different while they were making these decisions. And I don't want to laugh and make jokes at that point. I really want to be in the moment there with them and experiencing that moment, holding their hand with a warm smile, and then crack jokes later, right? When we get out of that difficulty, to show that there are both sides and that it's okay that it's hard and we'll go through it together. That's sort of my distinction. It's a distinction, little tiny distinction, but I just wanted
I
to point.
love I love that because it's nuance of the area that you work in. I'm over here in the business and real estate and financial paradigms where, historically speaking, it's been very serious, very heavy, very transactional, black and white. And I bring the fun into it so people can actually access more of what it is that they want. So I'm in like the dream building stage.
Yeah,
And so I can appreciate, my perspective looking from here out forward in the growth section that, this is a mindset where I've put the fun into the dreaming
yeah,
rather so than the shoulding or the imperatives because they're all going to be there. But
yeah.
I love listening to, what you're planning for is, you know, end of life stuff. What you're planning for is stuff that is, not shiny happy. So I can appreciate in your nuanced world that being a good person who doesn't take themselves seriously and allowing you to have that depth with people that's saying, yeah, I can hold you here in the bottom and this is not a laughing matter. And we don't have to have a terrible time talking about the stuff that's uncomfortable. And we can also share good time and like connection around that.
I used
That's
to
very
start my engagements with people with the coffee cup because it really showed that I just sort of wanted to chat with them, and end it with a shot glass. Because really, it's tricky stuff, right? It's deep, heavy stuff, but you don't have to take yourself so seriously while doing it. So yeah, we laugh a lot with my clients. I laugh a lot. I find that those are the best. I love to work with people who love to laugh, even when things
oh,
are hard.
right on. So, like, so many of us, right? Who out there is like, yeah, I love to laugh. And sometimes I do take myself too seriously. Like, here's someone who can help. But so, can you tell us a little bit about, your profession and the context of your work so that we can understand estate planning? Like, it's a theme for a lot of people, but I don't know that many of us really understand, how to identify when we need it or what that even is. Can you define it for us a little bit?
Yeah, so I guess I'll take it back by saying what it is, and then the fact that we call it this, right? So because I feel like for myself, even before I did this kind of work, I knew that there was a thing out there and there were documents that people should have, but I was like, I don't know what any of that is, right? So part of my focus and my partner's focus in the work that we do here at our firm is really about education. Because our philosophy is, doesn't matter what you decide to do, but make an educated choice, and the do nothing is a choice, right? So, and in my world, do nothing often means the state decides. And that's a bad answer for most people. So let me step back and say, when you run into a situation where you need a medical decision to be made on your behalf, or something needs to happen and you can't do it, every adult needs to have somebody else appointed to do it for them. or nobody can. Even when you're married, your spouse doesn't have any right to anything that isn't theirs. They can't be you, they can't stand in your shoes, right? So if something were to happen to you, you need to have people who can help, both in your personal life with medical issues and financial issues, but also with your business life, right? And this is something that's super important, especially for women who are sort of, trying to balance so many different aspects. We sometimes forget, oh, I need to do planning for my business too, right? But the concept being, these are sort of the lifetime pieces of what I do. And these are the basic documents people need to have in place so that while they're alive, things can work the way they want. And again, it brings up all the awful things, right? Getting hit by a bus or something. That's something we need to act in your place. But it helps so that when you get better, everything hasn't fallen apart. You haven't become a guardian of the state or of somebody else, right? So then the other piece is inheritance.
Mm.
That's the other side. So there's lifetime protections and there's inheritance. And depending on, if you have minor children, there's special things you can do during your lifetime. And there's also your wills, right? So it's both the lifetime and the inheritance piece. And I don't want to get into all of that, but that's kind of what estate planning talks about.
Wow.
When we look at that, though, it's not just how do you get it, right? It's also making sure that we can protect it for our children in specific ways in case
We
something
can give
happens
it.
down the road.
Right. So how we can give it, how we can take what we do have or what we would like for our children to receive from us when we're gone or when we're disabled or what they can do with it, thinking through those things because there's a lot of hands on the way to inheritance
Yes.
and to be able to protect the assets or to protect the strategy that you want to see honored. This is what you help with.
The other way I like to look at it, which I think really kind of helps people see what I do in a little different light, is that it's rarely about protecting the assets. People don't care about the assets. They want to protect their family, and the assets are there to do that. So it
Thank
doesn't mean, tell me how I can protect this house. It's tell me how I can protect my child so that they can utilize the value of the house to better their own lives. And that's a much deeper conversation because then we get into things that are far beyond the legal, how should I own this property? And it gets into, well, at what age do you think your child should take full control of this? At what age do you think, the siblings, which of the siblings should be the ones that are going to be in charge, right? So these are tricky conversations outside of the legal context.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a big piece of what we do is sitting around a kitchen table and having these tricky conversations. I had somebody call me once a week before Thanksgiving and say, I need to change my will. My son isn't inviting me for Thanksgiving. There are lawyers out there who would have said, come on in, I'll draw you up a new will. Here's the bill. Thank you and goodbye. I was like, sit with it, right? This isn't who you are. Maybe you're angry, but this is your last message to your family. Make sure it's reflecting you, right? So it had nothing to do with the law. It was just, and I'm not trying to be a therapist here because I'm not a therapist. It was just saying, think about this as a, right? And these are the kinds of conversations I have with people. And then the last section, right? So we've got the during life, afterlife, but then there's also planning for end of life.
Mm.
And that is medical, that's financial, it's talking about long-term care and Medicaid issues. Again, really emotional triggers for people in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But it has to be thought about. So that's kind of the gamut, right, in the world that I work in.
Oh,
When estate planning, that's what we mean when we say estate planning. It's that world.
and so many people don't really understand it. I mean, I've been around the block, so I've had touches with estate planning in different pieces of my career. So,
Right.
I know when I say an estate planning attorney, all of that I mean, but to hear it in a way that people can understand, I think is really, really valuable. There's so many times when I've wanted to provide value and see myself helping people in a vision or something that is coming towards them in their future, but they can't see it because they've got their blinders on and they don't want to know about it because they're not ready to accept that it's happening. And so I don't feel qualified many times to be having those conversations.
Mm.
Hunter Jamie, right? Here's somebody who loves to laugh and has the bandwidth and the expertise to be able to walk side by side with people to say, okay, have you thought of this, and how do you want to see, like walking them through? I don't even know what that looks like, walking them through that conversation, but I'm so glad that someone of your quality of character is there to provide that kind of expertise.
I can't tell you how meaningful that is to hear, because I really think that that's sort of why I get out of bed in the morning. Nobody leaves my office saying, oh my God, I have the most beautiful trust you could ever imagine. I mean, they do, but nobody leaves my office saying that, right? They walk out saying, oh, I feel so much better. And that is to me the goal, right? That's the goal. And so hearing you say that is really what it's all about to me, because, as a estate planning lawyer, any attorney can pick up the code books, read the cases, understand how to do this stuff, but it's also doing it with the compassion and the warmth that I think so many people in my industry are really trying to shift towards that focus, right? A lot more estate planning attorneys now really want to have those relationships, and they don't want it to be transactional, because you can't see things holistically that way,
Right.
right? We've talked about this sandwich generation, and that's our motto, is estate planning for the sandwich generation. It's the folks who have so much on their plate that how could they possibly know that they should be looking at all of these things? So that's what we're there for, to have a relationship. And I can't stress like how important it is for people to have somebody that they can just turn to when there are questions in this area, because
Yeah.
it can just provide so much support. And it's a, oh, I feel better moment, that's the hope, at least.
Yeah, and so I'm looking at, in my mind's eye, I've got an Oreo cookie staring me in the face, which I'm gonna have to go get one of those. I did not give up chocolate for this time of year, so aha. But the cream filled center, that's kind of the phase of life where I'm at right now. I have children, so I want to plan and protect and make sure that there's structure in place, but I also have age my husband and I both have aging parents. We both have that, and I'm
Yeah,
sure
my
they've done the
parents,
best they can with what they have, but as we endeavor to figure out our stuff, we're going to start seeing our relationship with them and what they need through a different lens as well. So if you are the cream filled center in the middle of two chocolate goodness Oreo cookie pieces, this is a good time to be having this conversation, so you can have perspective on your aging parents, and you can also have perspective on your own strategy to be able to protect your children. I really holistically feel like you have to know a person to be able to help them create the transactions or the logistics that make that a reality,
yeah.
because those of us who are not lawyers, we are not proficient in this thinking, we are not proficient in these solutions, and it can be really scary to try to DIY it. Many of us are like children of the DIY generation, where DIY came from.
Yeah, I see that all the time, and it causes so much trouble. And it's so well intentioned. It's like pulls at your heartstrings, because they were trying to do the best that they could, and they really did. It just could have been done in ways that made it easier for other people, save money. Those are always possibilities. But I try to tell people, people do the best they can with what they've got at the moment that they can, right? So if you've got one of those DIY things that you're dealing with from your folks, I'm sure they were just doing the best that they could, to just get something in place. So I always try to remind people that it's really such a scary part of the world to think about. I mean, even thinking about, your own parents getting older and their mortality, forget your own mortality, right? And then your children. I mean, it's such tough stuff to think about that I tell people all the time, just picking up the phone and having a conversation with me is an amazing first step, because so many people can't even get there. But it's,
Yes. Oh, I've done it. And this is why we are here today. I mean, we've
right,
had multiple conversations like, hey, I've got this thing that happens in my life. Can you give me some context or some
yeah,
color? So, oftentimes people think about the professions like legal and accounting, like you have to buy the service to be able to come through that paywall to be able to get the value. I think that's what we're up to changing right now.
yeah,
In your
absolutely.
profession and in mine, it's just, be that beacon, be the education source, create that trust. That's our give. That is our broadcast message here, is that,
Yeah.
if you need something, give us a
Hi,
call. If we
resource.
yeah,
Yeah.
resource,
Here,
resource.
I'm here. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, it's really about that. It's about education. And I laugh about this all the time. My mortgage company doesn't always agree with me that it's about the education, but right, like that's again what makes it worthwhile is so in my previous life, I was a corporate tax attorney on Wall Street, and I love a good adventure through the tax code because I'm a dork like that, but there's no people involved, right? And there's no warmth and there's no deep in your heart satisfaction. There's basic satisfaction and there's contentment and there's, woohoo, I found the way through the path, right? The maze. But I really felt like to have that connection with people, you really can't be sitting, I really couldn't be stuck behind those numbers that way. So I love the math plus, not the math, the tax side of it. Plus, so like you have to do all the complex thinking, but the people side of it as well. And the way I see the difference is how people react to me at cocktail parties, right? Corporate tax attorney, right? Estate planning attorney. Oh, so I have a friend, right?
Yeah.
It's just, that's exactly the difference that it reflects the exact difference in the professions.
That's beautiful. And so there needs to be more highlighting of people like you in the industry who can get a voice out there, have some people understand what it is that you do so that you can point them in the right direction. And if there's an opportunity to do something for them, you'll let them know. It's like the consultative approach is the relationship first approach. And ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching this, you just found another trusted resource. It's the reason why I do this. It is the
And I
reason
will
why
add,
I bring it.
and I will add to that, I didn't mean to cut you
Go ahead,
off.
go ahead.
I will add to that, I know people like me who do what I do all over the country. I only do what I do in New York, so feel free, everybody out there, right? Reach out. I can connect you with people who are like me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like no matter where you are, lawyers, it's hard because we can only practice in certain areas. We can do everything virtually now, right? You can't
Mhm.
sign your documents that way. So, and I can't practice law in another state, right? So even though the world is smaller, we still have those issues. So I'm happy to be a resource if people need connections in other areas.
Yes. And so thank you. So where can people go to find you?
Burndownlewis.com.
Yeah, it's up here and it's down there.
Yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
could also probably Google estate planning for the sandwich generation. That is our tagline. It is trademarked and ready to go. And so that's really where we try to plant ourselves. So if you Google that, you will find us as well. Now that I said that, I have to try it and see what comes up. Um,
I mean, because if you listen to a couple podcasts ago, the confuseopoly that is Google's algorithms, it's like a magic potion formula. It's constantly on the change. But I want to just thank you for being here with us today because when you know better, you do better. And again, in this age of disruption where nothing is status quo anymore and we get to make choices, which is the biggest opportunity because everything's being disrupted, to choose your providers, to choose to engage people from a relationship first point of view. That's the way that business is going. It's the way I do business. It's why I have people here on this podcast. It's my strategic partners that I want to share with the rest of you. So please feel free, reach out to Jaime. And in the meantime, we broadcast every single Monday, 7:30 a.m. Eastern time, right here on YouTube / Consultress. So I will see you next time, friends. Same bat time, same bat channel. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, and the notification bell, and forward this episode to someone who you feel might really benefit from what we've said here. Jaime, it's been a pleasure. Thanks a million for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.